What's up, everybody? Thanks for hanging out with us. As always, you know what to do. Hit like and subscribe, and let's get after it. Hi, hello, and welcome to your favorite Average to Good podcast. Call it what you want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies and Brian McBride, and we've got a great show for you today because Americans are playing all over the world, and we're going to talk about their performances or lack of performances. We're going to talk about maybe some transfer news because the transfer window is still open, at least on the European side of things. And then we're going to talk about Mauricio Pochettino because he is inching closer to joining the U.S. men's national team. Brian McBride, how are you feeling? You got any inside scoop as a former employee of U.S. Soccer on the front office side of things? What do you got for us? Secrets?
I have absolutely nothing for you, Jimmy. Sorry about that. No, I've been watching the podcast when I haven't been on, and it's been fun. It's been fun to hear all the information that's coming in. Can't wait to talk to Felipe a little bit later. And the excitement, I think, now is it just has to get over the line. We have to get this done.
I think that's inching closer. Now, I do know that Chuck has some inside scoop because he's on the morning footy crew. And they just always have inside scoop. Chuck, what do you got for us? Mauricio Pochettino is going to be in charge for Canada. I know we're going to get to Felipe Cardenas from The Athletic here very soon, but what are your thoughts? Any inside scoop from you?
You know, I got my people. I will say I've heard, he's excited to join the U.S. men's national team on the sidelines. He's excited.
I'm excited too.
The holdup is the salary that is owed to him by Chelsea. So essentially, he's owed a lot of money, and then they don't know how much money he's going to get. Is there a portion of that salary that he's going to be, taking from the Chelsea before he signs for U.S. Soccer officially? So that's the holdup.
That's a big hold, money, Charlie.
It is.
Well, listen, Todd Bowley.
The fact that it's not done already is pretty surprising because usually that gets sorted out within the first couple weeks after you've been let go.
Listen, Todd Bowley's American. Todd Bowley, let's do what's best for our national team. That's one. Two, you signed about 3,000 players over the last 2 or 3 years. Just sell one or two, and then let's get the whole thing moving. Pay Mauricio Pochettino what he's owed, and let him get over here, and let's get after it. Well, we got some inside scoop. I've already heard from Brian. We've heard from Chuck. Let's bring on Felipe Cardenas from The Athletic. Felipe, great to see you as always.
What's up, guys?
So you wrote an article for The Athletic saying and intimating that Mauricio Pochettino could be in charge for that first game against Canada on September 7th. What do you got for us? Any more updates to that article?
Thank God, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, going on what Charlie said, and even what Brian said, like it is a bit of a surprise that the deal's not done. But this week, from what I was told, this week is a big week in what could be perhaps getting to the finalization of this deal with Mauricio Pochettino. And that means I think U.S. Soccer, what they are feeling right now is a bit of pressure to get the deal done. Remember, when Greg was rehired, a lot of time went by. I think the fans were getting impatient with the way that the interview process was going. And U.S. Soccer, I think, wants to show the world, but especially their fans, that they have a plan and they have a strategy and they have their man. And the one thing that I've been hearing, since Friday, I went to the U.S. Soccer Board of Directors meeting. I hung out in the hotel, and the vibes were positive. That's what I'm telling you. The vibes were positive. I thought that's why I was there. I wanted to get some body language to see if there were if there was a bit of anxiety with Pochettino. And it seems like the holdup is Chelsea, and it's not so much that they owe Mauricio Pochettino money. The one thing that what I was hearing on Friday, they always refer to Pochettino as they, because this is him and his staff. And they had a 2-year contract with a 3rd year as an option with Chelsea, and that's what they're trying to figure out. I was told it's like showing up to a dance with 3 people, and so the negotiation with Chelsea is positive. But to Brian's point, what I was told is that they don't want to agree to anything until every little detail is buttoned up. That was the word that they used, and so. This could be the week, though, and whether or not he coaches against Canada, it's going to depend on what happens this week.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see how that all unfolds, of course. And so why do you think that there is something from Chelsea. What's the holdup? Is it just because these extra people came to the dance and they weren't on the RSVP list, or like how do we kind of unpack, or ultimately how do we resolve this quickly?
I mean, I think one thing is because Pochettino and Chelsea have decided to separate from an agreement that was supposed to last 2 years. So he's 1 year into a 2-year deal, and now they're both parties are wanting out of the deal. Then there's the other part of it that Mauricio Pochettino has verbally agreed to coach another team, to coach the U.S. men's national team. And so I think that's part of the fine print when a contract ends prematurely. Okay, but you're taking another job. What are they going to pay you? And Pochettino, from what I understand, and this isn't news, you guys know this, like he could stay in club football and make a lot more money than what he's going to make as the head coach of the U.S. men's national team.
Wait, Felipe, do we have a number? Because I don't know what Emma Hayes is on. Was it a 2.5, 3 million?
I think it's about almost 3. I think it's 2 million. I think it was reported to 2 million.
So what's Pochettino? What are you hearing in terms of that? Not to say that.
I mean, Southgate was on £6 million, right? So
yeah,
and he was the highest paid international manager. So
right,
you would assume, one would assume, to get Pochettino, who would be the greatest, I guess, the most experienced coach the U.S. men's national team has ever had, right? Almost a pipe dream, that he would be in the range. And Klinsmann was reported to have $4 million contract.
Mm-hmm.
I would say between 5 and 7 would be my guess.
Well, again, I don't know the number, but what I know is, and this was reported by The Athletic a week ago by my colleagues, that one way to get closer to the number that Pochettino and his staff are going to feel comfortable with is talking to sponsors and donors. Now, what I was told on Friday is that that part of the equation, donors, sponsors, partners, commercial partners, again, this is what I was told, they're not involved in this stage of finalizing a deal. Now, that doesn't mean that down the road, they play a part. And from what I was told is that, donors, new commercial sponsors are really fired up about Pochettino. And this started with Emma Hayes. Emma Hayes getting hired, arguably the best women's national team coach in the world, then winning gold. That has spurred a lot of excitement in this world of, the commercial part of the game, where that's helping U.S. soccer get out of a hole that they were in about 18 months ago. And when they see that they've hired Emma Hayes, and then then the proof is immediately proven in the Olympics with a gold medal, then they see that the U.S. soccer has gone out and gotten a huge name in Mauricio Pochettino. I think that just drives a lot of interest from that financial place. And so I think Pochettino in the end, maybe he doesn't get the number that he could have gotten if he would have stayed in England or stayed in Europe and coached Champions League football. But he's going to be fine. Still, it's going to be a huge pay cut for him. And again, just quickly, I'll say, the one thing that I think stood out from the conversations that I had, and we've all wondered, Charlie brought it up, and Jimmy, you were excited about it. Like I did want to know, is Pochettino, is he excited? Like, what's happening here? And I was told that he's extremely excited. And the fact that September now, that camp is such a big deal now for him and his staff, tells you how eager they are to get started, I think.
I can verify he is excited. He is excited.
I do want to jump in and say that Emma Hayes and more specifically the U.S. women's national team propping up the men's team once again with some success that we can ride the coattails on. Got plenty of time for the women's national team. Congratulations to them once again on winning the gold. Also, we want to say that Roberto Mancini is getting $27 million a year to coach Saudi Arabia right now. It's just a little bit more than Gareth Southgate. I don't know if Pochettino is going to be scraping those numbers. Brian, what do you got for Felipe? You've been professionally quiet here. I'm just being very polite and quiet here.
Well, he's also in talks with the Saudi Arabian Federation.
That's fair. That's fair.
No, it's the fun part of this is the speculation, and the speculation. Anytime you hear about a manager like Pochettino who's interested and excited to come, that's exciting to all of us. The concern for me is, again, the fact that it's taking so long on Chelsea side, but thinking about that, it's probably actually probably helping the U.S. in the sense that he's going to get that money in the buyout. So US doesn't necessarily have to pay over the odds, which, to be honest with you, I'd be surprised if the US Federation does that. So that structure, and Felipe, when you were talking to people, the structure side of things and the commitment that US Soccer has put forth to have equal pay, has that had any influence or any concern from the board about, if we do end up paying Pochettino, a bigger number, will Emma Hayes then get that raise also?
I mean, that's a huge question. I think the Emma Hayes part of the equation is that with her, U.S. Soccer has set a new standard, and that has been applauded by obviously just pundits and the football world in general. But I think also, again, we go back to commercial partners. That was sort of the big part of the conversations that I had on Friday. Is that there is a sort of a renewed direction and level of support with U.S. Soccer, and I think that could help. I just make the salary portion for Mauricio Pochettino's eventual deal a bit more equitable. Now, is he going to be paid more than Emma Hayes? I don't know, and that'll be interesting. Emma Hayes I think plays a very important role here. Which is interesting. They were both at Chelsea. If you remember, Emma Hayes and Pochettino, they know each other well. The Athletic reported that she was, while she was coaching the women at the Olympics in Paris, she was checking in to make sure that Pochettino's the deal and everything, that the connections that were being made were on the right track. And so that tells you that she's trying to get this done too. I don't think she's sitting in a room and talking to her agent saying, hey, let's see what this number is, because if he gets more, I'm not happy. Like, I don't think that's the priority right now. I think that'll be further reported down the road. But for now, I think the optics are that, Pochettino and his staff, I think, to Brian's point, they're probably now sitting at home wondering, when is this going to get done? Because I think, with this September window coming, if you throw out the salaries and the numbers that they're going to make, there's still something that's even more important, which is, this World Cup in 2 years. And no coach has any time to waste, especially anyone that comes in and coaches the U.S. So that's why I think the September camp, that was really nailed down to me on Friday. The September camp is very, very important for the U.S. men's national team. And I know it was reported that Mikey Veras was probably going to coach as an interim, and that could still potentially happen. I was told the details. Yeah, we don't know who's going to coach, but they want Pochettino and his staff to be there and to be heavily, heavily active and present.
Okay, so this is one thing, because we typically want to read some of the comments on the YouTube. It's live, whatever. So this one triggered me a little. But I'm allow Felipe to handle this one.
We need a trigger meter for Chuck.
What? The question is from OM. What has Poch done to deserve this praise? ? He's a serial failure as a coach. Please, you go in. How
you define success? I mean, if it's just based on trophies,
please handle this.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll be devil's advocate first. To Jimmy's point. Does he have a trophy case that's just glittering? No. But something that I'm working on once this deal gets announced is why is he a good fit? Like, why Mauricio Pochettino? I don't think he's the guy. From what I heard on Friday, again, we're gonna have to get names down the road, but many of the top coaches in the world were interested in this job. We're interested in the U.S. men's national team job. In the end, Mauricio Pochettino ends up being the guy. And why is he the guy if he doesn't have international football and experience? This guy named Lionel Scaloni. Do you remember that guy? Like, did he have any experience? That has blown up this notion that you have to have tons of experience as an international manager to take on a national team. It also, I think, blows a lot of things. Yeah, and I think if you just go to results, that's only one part of professional football and professional sports. I know a lot of decisions are made on trophies, and I don't think Pochettino is the perfect candidate. He's got a lot to prove too, but is he the best person right now?
But to that point, Felipe, I like that he has a lot to prove too, right? I think that fits into what we're looking for this particular group of players and for U.S. Soccer on the men's side.
We're all clamoring for Jurgen Klopp, and he has no international experience, and he has nothing to prove. So that's
right.
Having somebody
It's interesting because Klopp would have been, that's the lottery, right? Everyone understood that was winning the Powerball. And to your point, Charlie, yeah, but he doesn't have a World Cup in his trophy case, but he's just like, he has produced, he has shown a level of leadership that is coveted at this level. So does Pochettino have that? Is he at the Klopp level? You can say no, but this could be the guy that fell out of nowhere because he was at Chelsea, and now he's going to have a big runway to prove that he can coach beyond the club football. Because as we know, international club football, two different stories.
And listen, the thing for me that jumps out, and with any coach, it doesn't matter if you're an international coach or professional coach, does he make teams better? He or she make teams better? That is going to be the most important thing. And Pochettino has shown that he can make teams better, especially, a group that has been thrown together in Chelsea. By the end of the year, they looked like a totally different team the second half of the season. And that's the thing that jumps out, and you can say, this is why I'm excited about Pochettino coming and coaching the U.S. team.
Yeah, and here's another thing that was reported by my colleagues at The Athletic, towards the end of the Pochettino era with Chelsea. His training sessions are really hard, guys. They're tough. He looks like a really nice, approachable guy, right? Mauricio Pochettino. I think you have to go back to the culture he comes from in Argentina, coming up under Bielsa, playing as a teenager, debuting as a 17-year-old at Newell's Old Boys in the 90s when football was a bit of a bloodbath. And so all those things are going to come together. I think that's proven that sort of like the philosophy that he has. And, maybe it's not trophies that this U.S. men's national team needs in order to be inspired. I think it's experience. It's like, do you have heart? Is it grit? It's a bunch of things that I think the teams that Pochettino has coached have proven to have some of those elements.
I think, again, it's going to how you determine success. No matter who came in as a coach, were we going to go out and win the 2026 World Cup? Listen, if we're being realistic, probably not. So when you think about what success is for us, and I remember having a conversation with Jurgen Klinsmann about this. I've told this story before, and Sunil Gulati, the then president of U.S. Soccer, tried to tear my head off in the elevator afterwards. But it's like, are we going to demonstrate us actually getting better as a nation, despite maybe not winning games through that process? And in this example, or the example I had for Jurgen Klinsmann, was not getting out of the group stage of 2014 World Cup, but demonstrating that we're better and putting the rest of the teams on notice, like, holy shit, those guys, they're starting to figure it out. That makes me a little bit nervous about the U.S. in the future. And even though we got out of our group and we saw that, we still played a little bit to our stereotypes. We sat back, we tried to hit on the counter and on set pieces or whatever. And I feel like Mauricio Pochettino, at least for me, when I define the progress and success of his time in charge, can he maximize the potential of this group? And that includes all the intangibles that you're talking about, heart, grit, all of that. And then can you match that with the talent that we have on display? Can we get the most out of a Gio Reyna, for example, to make sure he can be consistently good every time he steps on the field? Those are the things that I'm looking at. And I'm hopeful when you get that, then the results will take care of themselves. If you're taking care of all this and everybody's making good soccer decisions on both sides of the ball, the results are going to be fine, and we're going to have a nice run. And we're going to need a little luck along the way. We've seen that with all teams. Even Argentina needed it in the last World Cup. Anyway, I'm off my soapbox. There's no question there. Take it away.
Let me add one thing. Let me add one thing to all that, because there are two things about Pochettino that make him an interesting candidate. And I'll just be short with this one because it's been heavily reported already. He has brought up young players. That's been sort of the part of his coaching upbringing. Just most recently, Moises Caicedo, who at one point was the most expensive player in Premier League history, he told reporters of the summer that pressure that he felt really weighed on him. He struggled, honestly, to play under that pressure. And when he was asked who was the guy that helped you, it was like, it was Pochettino. It was him and his staff. Like, they put my head where it needed to be. And so, that I think that bodes well for the players that you mentioned, Jimmy, that play for the U.S. right now. The other thing that we need to go back to, I think, is this game against Canada. I think Jesse Marsch he's not even on the show anymore, and he's still part of the show. Like the Jesse Marsch equation, the fact that this friendly is against Canada, and Jimmy, you saying like, the U.S. has to show the world that they have a plan, that they have direction, and Canada has a direction. And I think this friendly, suddenly is pretty important for the U.S. Like, I don't think anyone wants
just
to
bought
go
10 more drones.
Yeah. No one wants to go into that
Chuck,
game. No one wants to go into that game with coming out of the game saying, where is this program going? And that's why I think there's a bit more pressure this week, and there's a bit more eagerness on behalf of Pochettino and the staff to be there in Kansas City and show that, okay, we're here, we're involved.
Okay,
we don't want to waste any more time.
We don't want to waste any time.
That's the thing.
So last question for you, Felipe. We appreciate your time. Is Pochettino going to have any involvement, based on what you've heard and what you've seen, with the roster selection for these upcoming games in this September window?
That I don't know to the detail. What I was told is that they meaning U.S. Soccer, has been planning the September camp for a long time. That was how it was told to me, a long time. I think that just shows the importance of the September window. But when I'm told multiple times on Friday about Pochettino and his staff being present, Pochettino and his staff being heavily involved, heavily present, active, I think, perhaps Jimmy, that goes beyond just game day, and he's probably looking at players already. Perhaps we see a surprise name, perhaps we don't. But I think when you talk about being active, being present, and having your fingerprints on the team, whether he's on the touchline or in a press box, I think that could include a selection of the squad. So we'll have to see.
Okay,
I gotta say this
Chuck.
comment, because this guy came with machetes at Jimmy. He says, not only Jimmy Cricket's Jimmy, Reyna's career is swirling down the toilet, and you think getting the most out of him is a priority? ? Why don't we prioritize getting the most out of Freddie Adu? Oh my word!
Oh goodness!
He came for Jimmy's soul on that.
My soul? What are we even talking? My soul? Yeah, and Freddie Adu was a mercurial talent back in the day. I mean, whatever. There's a bigger conversation to have there. Now, McBrizzle, I know you have to go as well. You're very popular. I think you have to go catch a flight to go do something fun and exotic, like always. We might have an emergency podcast once Mauricio Pochettino gets officially announced by U.S. Soccer. But final thoughts about this whole situation before we let you go as well.
Listen, I keep being a little cautious through this process, right? Because the fact that it's taken this long to sort of get it over the line.
Don't do it. Don't do that, McBride.
McBrizzle,
come on.
Look at the vibes from McBrizzle.
Listen,
right now.
I'm just saying. So I hope this deal gets done, and I'll be ready to hop on any podcast when it does get done. But to me, I can't see it happening before the September 7th, or in enough time for him to get done. But like, knowing how everything works, Pochettino is definitely going to have a say on this roster. There's no doubt about it. If he's agreed to deal, they're already working together. The problem is he can't really come out and say that, because then it affects what you get done with Chelsea and get that deal done. So those things are factors. That's why I'm cautiously concerned that he's not going to be a part of the September window. But man, oh man, I can't wait till it's done. Then we can have a big
McBrizzle there. We got the business side, we got the excited fan side. McBrizzle giving us everything there. Appreciate you, Felipe. All right, we're going to take our first break. Call it what you want. When we come back, we're going to talk about more of the good stuff. Just me and Chuck probably trying to get triggered by everybody in the comments. Don't go anywhere.
Bring it.
Yeah, they're wrapping up the summer. And now we're looking forward to kicking it with superstars. Now that's CBS Sports Sunday. We'll see you on September 8th.
Welcome back in to Call What You Want.
Brad was still here because this comment came for his soul.
Chuck, bringing it home for you for the rest of the show. Chuck, you said that question. You said he took my soul. I don't even, because I said that.
He basically is saying, how are you talking about Gio Reyna being so important and Pochettino having to get the most out of him when he's not playing? Like,
I get that. I get that.
There's a possibility that he might not even get called up.
I just was using Gio as an example. I wasn't trying to.
I know.
Yeah, okay. I mean,
but Matt Crocker, he's in the comments. He said McBride doesn't want this. He wants an MLS coach. That's why he's saying, "Simmer down, everybody. It's not
Matt Crocker. Pochettino's Matt Crocker's guy, right? They closed over Southampton.
Hey, McBride said he saw that comment, and it's not true.
I love that. McBrizzle walking down the hallway heckling Chuck. That's like a real life trigger right there. I appreciate that.
Literally a real life trigger. He popped in. He's like, no, that comment is not getting to me.
Okay, so let's talk. We could get into Mauricio Pochettino all day and continue this conversation, and we will. And I'm sure the comments will want us to continue to answer questions about it, but plenty of time to get into it, especially when he gets officially announced. I'm not buying into that McBrizzle bad news, sadness of it. Maybe it won't happen. I'm not going there. Staying positive here. Let's get into Americans abroad. Some big performances from some of our players in the player pool. I'm looking at Jedi Robinson. He had an assist in their Fulham's 2-1 win over Leicester. Then you had Brandon Aaronson starting and scoring for Leeds. He scored ultimately, which was the match winner in Leeds' big 2-0 win away from home against Sheffield Wednesday. Josh Sargent scores. Austin Trusty starts, and Norwich has 1-1 draw with Sheffield United. Parma doing the business, 2-1 over AC Milan. What's going on there with Paulo Fonseca? But Pulisic scores, gets a little nice tappy tap in that I think even Chuck Davies could score. And then Lyon and Monaco won 2-0 away from home. Flo Balogun was an unused sub in that one. We'll get into that a little bit more. Almere City. Have you heard of Almere City? Probably not. Well, they got smoked by PSV 7-1. Richie Ledezma gets another start at right back. Milik Tillman starts and he scores. Ricardo Pepi comes off the bench and scores. Nice and Toulouse 1-1. Mark McKenzie makes his Club Ligue 1 debut. Comes out after 16 minutes in that one. Strasbourg beating Rennes 3-1. Caleb Wiley makes his, well, he actually played in the last one. Anyway, he starts and they win. So that's exciting news. Lots going on, Chuck.
A lot. It's almost overwhelming, almost. But we're good. Let's go.
We're good. There's some good positive performances. So let's get on 3 up and 3 down.
Yeah.
So who do you think really kind of elevated their status to continue to be kind of front and center on Mauricio Pochettino's radar for this upcoming window and just in the future going forward? Who are your 3 up? Who do you like?
My three up. It's always good to see players start and make a difference, especially coming into a window with a new manager. And so Cameron Carter-Vickers at Celtic getting a start, clean sheet. Richie Ledezma getting a second start at third start at right back for PSV. And I remember being really impressed with Richie Ledezma before he tore his ACL. And he's in the midfield, right? Creative player. Now he's finding a position, finding a way on the pitch at right back, and he's very gifted in tight spaces, good control. He came to New York City FC for a loan year, and it didn't really pan out the way I thought it would. But obviously the kid is gifted, so I like that. And Brandon Aaronson, I think he's really started off strong in the championship in the EFL. He scored again, and those are my 3 players who have contributed to make a difference, to say, hey, Pochettino, I'm playing and I'm ready.
Yeah. I love the Brendan Aaronson shout. Obviously, it was a difficult situation. Didn't go with them back down to the championship after they got relegated. He went to Union Berlin, and in some ways, I think to a lot of fans, he kind of ran away from a difficult situation and didn't stick with them. And now he's back and kind of has to re-earn that trust and that love and that adoration from the fans. Obviously, scoring goals and helping them win games is going to help us solve that problem pretty quickly. So I'm proud of him from going back into a difficult situation and improving himself and doing well. I want to add Jedi Robinson into the mix. That's his 7th Premier League assist since the beginning of last season. So he's really, I think, picking his spots. And I think he's continued to improve on the defensive side of the ball. A lot of nuance and subtlety in terms of positioning and that positional discipline. But I think he's demonstrating that more and more under his manager at Fulham, Marco Silva. So it's been nice to see his progression. And I think obviously he's locked in as our guy on the left side. I wonder if we're going to play back 3, back 4. We'll have to wait and see. Josh Sargent. There's just something about the way that I love the way he moves and the purposeful running. And I'll say this. I know that PSV played against Almere City, and Almere City are not good. But when Ricardo Pepi came on as a sub, and I know that if he's got 15, 20 minutes to prove himself, he's going to be running around crazy, but I love his little movements to pull off the back shoulder to try to check into space. If it's not on, he's going to go support the next play. I've really been impressed with him maximizing his time. He's already been doing that, but every time I see him, I'm like, that just demonstrates to me, if I'm looking at it body language, Chuck, that he's got the right attitude, right? He's just trying to make the most of every single minute that he has on the field. He should have maybe scored 2. One was a good run to the near post and ends up hitting off a defender and going in. Then he ended up getting the last goal to make it 7-1. And then Richie Ledezma, I've been pretty impressed. But I had Aaronson, Jedi, and Josh Sargent as kind of my 3 up. But I think they're obviously that are in the conversation. And Richie Ledezma, to your point, third straight start at right back. I think that's an area with Serginho Dest hurt that he could potentially get on the radar in a different way. Joe Scally, I think though serviceable, doesn't always like blow my hair back, I guess is the best way to say it when I watch him play. And though I thought he had some good performances, during the summer, I still think there's an area where other players could jump in and have an opportunity.
Blow my hair back, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like an old school stuff. Blow my hair back.
Woo!
I can't wait to hear from Joe Scally in person. Like, oh, I don't blow your hair back. Okay, bro. But anyway, let's go to 3 down, Chuck.
Yes.
Who are in the 3 down for you?
All right. Irv Renard.
Yeah, because he's not going to get the job anymore. So
yeah,
sad.
get out of here. No, my 3. My 3 down.
Another 3. The chat is down right now because they couldn't trigger you today in a meaningful way.
So I'm gonna go Valerian Balogun, unused substitute in a big match for Monaco. That is a concern if I've ever seen one. He just has not looked sharp with the U.S. men's national team, really. And you throw in Monaco not playing for your club team, it's not looking great. Tanner Tessmann is another one because of the dispute with Venezia of where he goes and how much he's going to get, or how much, Mike Gartland, his agent's going to get a piece of these deals. At least, they're trying to blame Gartland for, trying to take bigger percentage of whatever his transfer fee will be. Either way, him not playing, that is hurting his stock, because these are the matches he needs to be playing early on in the season, and not letting other teams get settled and get their midfield sorted. And then next thing you know, if he does make a move, he's on the out looking in, trying to figure out a way to get into a midfield. Then the third, but definitely not the least, it's Matt Turner, third string at Nottingham Forest, and hasn't been able to secure a move. I don't think Nottingham Forest is interested in a loan deal, which makes it difficult. And then now you're trying to figure out.
Are you talking to him at all? Have you got?
Basically it's difficult. I'm just telling him to keep his head up. That's all he can do is stay positive and work his butt off. He's, I said, look at it this way. There are worse places to be than third string in the English Premier League, and you're a goalie and you're healthy and your family's healthy, right? So look at all the positives.
Sure,
as tough it is, I know we all want to be playing. You got a World Cup in 2 years, but life isn't that bad when it's all said and done. So just keep working hard, and what will be will be.
Yeah, but you know how it goes. Our whole mood,
of course.
Our whole mood.
Sometimes you need to hear that perspective.
Yeah, I get it. I'm glad you're providing that role for him, especially you as a former player who's obviously gone through a lot of ups and downs. All right, well, speaking of downs, I'm going to get into my 3 down. Mine are all Flo Balogun. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that, but I'm breaking the rules. So I'm going to piggyback off of what you said, Chuck. Balogun, he's on my 3 down for not starting after starting the week before. Listen. Adi Hütter, the manager of Monaco, he made one change from their 1-0 win from the week before, and it was Flo Balogun. That
Yikes.
Sucks, dude. So I know that was going to have an impact. Why wouldn't it have an impact on him? And then he's in my down again, because not only did he not play at all, his team ended up winning. And when his teammate Lamine Camara scored the second goal, he ran over to all the guys that were, that were subs. And if you watch the highlight, I had to watch it a couple times. Flo Balogun doesn't join in with all the other guys to celebrate Kamara scoring, which I was like, okay, he's pissed, So that's another reason.
Yeah, but you can't show it.
You can't show it.
This is rule number one for any professional out there. If you're listening to this, you're watching our show, you can be bull that you are not playing, or you feel like you've earned the chance to come in as a substitute and it doesn't happen for you. If you start taking away from the team chemistry, if you start taking away from the locker room, the positivity, and you start becoming this angry, disgruntled player that you can't even celebrate for others, celebrate Kamara's joy for scoring goal, for winning the game, that's when it becomes a real issue for the management and for the coach. And then you're just going to fall further down the line.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. It's. I know he's still young. It's sometimes I forget how young these guys are as they're developing and maturing and evolving as players and as humans. But to your point, yes, you don't want to show your hand. You don't want to let anybody know that they've got the best of you emotionally. There's a time to have your emotional process, but try not to make it in front of teammates and coaches. I go to your safe space, go to people, your support system, right? All the people that kind of
coach's locker room. knock.
Yeah, or that too,
hey.
Right? Obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, so one more of my down for Balogun. Not only did all that happen, which we said, but you have Josh Sargent, who he'd be competing with for the number 9 spot for us. He scores. You have Ricardo Pepi, does the most what he can with his minutes. He scores. Brandon Vasquez, who might have a new lease on life with the player pool. Maybe Pochettino values the player profile and skill set that he could bring to the table. He scores. So yeah, not a great weekend for football.
Oh, this is another thing. So Gio Reyna, I was thinking about, do I put him down? But
well, he could have been an up because he got 8 or 9 minutes, right?
He got some minutes.
He got some minutes.
It could be 5 minutes, could be 10
He's
minutes.
Alive.
At least
alive.
At least there's a heartbeat, there's something. Yeah. So he can't be on the down because at least he's getting something rather than nothing. And he can't be, for me, you're not going to get an up. So there are some people, like a Yunus Musa. He had a big opportunity. He got to start, and he didn't play well. So
yeah, right.
But is he a down? No, I wouldn't say he's a down. He's still at Milan. He got to start. But yeah, I mean, there's levels to this 3 up, 3 down. I can tell you that.
No, there is. There's definitely, and we want to explain those. Also, there was another sub that came on for Dortmund, Jamie Gittens, and he came on in the 60th minute. He scored 2 goals that ultimately helped Dortmund win the game against Eintracht Frankfurt. But speaking of Gio Reyna, the sporting director for BVB, Sebastian Kiel, said this about him just recently. He has to accept his role and free himself from it. There's a lot of philosophy and there's a lot going on. There's a lot just in that first sentence. A lot of zen going on there. It was clear when we had the talks in the summer that Gio wanted to take on this role, that there will be enough games where we need him. We know that he has incredible skills. So that is from Sebastian Kiel on Gio Reyna.
That's his perspective on Gio has changed, from season to season, from month to month. We've seen a lot of negative, I guess, feedback on Gio. This is probably the most positive I've seen. It's not the most glamorous comment, just to say basically you're confined to the bench. It's on you to get yourself out, and that he agreed to be on the bench and try and work his way into the team because he believes in his situation. But I think in all seriousness, it comes down to no one was willing to pay the fee that Dortmund wanted for him. And there wasn't a great situation that Gio would feel, I want to leave Dortmund to go to, at this stage. So all you can do is fight, which ultimately I think it shows your character. You kind of develop as a person, on and off the pitch when you're put in these situations. We've seen Weston McKennie, how many times they say, we don't want him here. Go on and go find a new club. And he's like, no, I'm not. I'm going to prove it to you. And eventually he finds his way into the team. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Gio. I think we'll know by December if he's got to go for sure.
Yeah.
With Pochettino on the sideline, or he's figured out a way to, at least carve out 15, 20 minutes every single game. He's getting more playing time and eventually tries to get a starting spot.
Yeah, he definitely was getting freezed out by the previous manager, Edin Terzic. It seems like with
Mhm.
Nuri Sahin in for BBB, giving him even 9 or 10 minutes is a positive sign. Sebastian Kiel also added, which I think is a funny part of it. We know that he has insane abilities, which is what I said about him before. Somebody's trying to take my soul in the comments. Of course he has. We know that. Sebastian Kiel ended up saying he worked on himself, worked on stability, worked on radiance. I don't know what that means, but I love it. This clever turning up between the lines and his goal threat, he has further developed this. So Gio can still become very important for us this season. There are no other thoughts. There's nothing on the table, and I don't sense that the player wants to leave. So to your point, Chuck, Sebastian Kiel seems like he is becoming more positive about Gio in the situation, and now it's up to Gio to take advantage of any of opportunities that he can. Now, using Gio as an example, and we could use Flo Balogun in this as well. If you're not playing a lot, if you're not performing, I'm curious to see if these guys get called in to the September window. Because if we think about the number 9 spot in particular, Sargent scoring goals, Haji scored a couple, not this past week, though I thought he was solid the week before. Vasquez, Pepe, all scoring. I wonder what kind of precedent that Mauricio Pochettino is going to instill once he takes over, because it just feels as wide open as possible, which is what I think this player pool needed. But what are your thoughts on, well, let's just use Balogun as an example, because Gio seems a little bit different of a situation.
So for Balogun, no playing time, over the weekend. If this is a trend and Pochettino comes on the sidelines, guess what? It's open season for Josh Sargent, for Haji Wright, for these guys, Brendan Vasquez, strikers who are playing and scoring. It's all about confidence and match fitness and sharpness. If Balogun's not playing competitive matches or he's only getting 5 minutes, 10 minutes, while these others are continuing to score goals and play, well, the inevitable is going to happen. And Balogun's not going to he'll come into camp, he won't play, and then eventually he won't be called into camp. That's how it always works.
Okay, so let's say this, because I think it's interesting as a coach that if you set a precedent in one area, like, okay, hey, listen, we got these 4 or 5 guys that are scoring goals at the number 9 spot, or it can be considered a number 9 spot. Flo isn't. We're going to leave Flo at home because that's the standard. But then our goalkeeper situation is a dumpster fire. So do you bring in Matt Turner if he's the third? You know what I mean? Like, for me, you have to be very consistent in the type of precedent that you set, because if you're making exceptions in one area of the field and then holding these other people to a different type of standard, that's not a great way, at least in my history as a player and as a coach, to win over the group and to make sure everybody's kind of bought in right from the get-go, which is what we need, because we don't have that much time with Pochettino in charge.
But I would say to you, Jimmy, is it's all about case by case. You can't have I think in today's day and age that you can't have like a general blanket statement, because the difference from Balogun not playing to second being Ricardo Pepi or Josh Sargent or Haji Wright or any Brandon Vasquez, all these guys who are playing, scoring goals, to Matt Turner not playing, to Horvath giving up 5 and letting the ball roll under his foot, to Gaga Sonina in the 3rd division and still conceding, playing well here and there, but ups and downs. The drop off is mighty. Like, it's just there's not a goalkeeper that you'd say, that's the true backup. Like, he's ready for the occasion. The level is pretty low across the board versus on number 9 at the national team level. You got options. There's a number of people who warrant the playing time, who are showing it at their clubs and playing well, versus the goalkeeper position that's so weak that even a Turner, who's 3rd string at Nottingham Forest, is still leaps and bounds better than Horvath. Still leaps and bounds better than Gaga Sonina.
I get it. I'm just saying
that's the issue. That is the issue.
That's an issue for every manager, not just Mauricio Pochettino, but how you balance that, and how, if there's not a one size fits all, or if you have a different philosophy than a one size fits all, how do you make sure that the people that are feeling maybe a little unfair about their particular situation, how you make sure they're continuing to be...
How would you handle it if you were Pochettino?
I would bring Balogun in.
No, you would.
Yeah.
No, but how would you handle the goalkeeper position?
That's tricky. I mean, you bring in, I guess you definitely get, I mean, very similarly, you bring in Matt Turner, you bring in Horvath, you bring in, I don't know who that third would be. But
Like,
and you just kind of
so you're still bringing in Horvath over Schulte, Slonina, Zach Steffen, even, Zach Steffen has been up and down this season, but
I would consider bringing guys in that are already or have been part of the pool and have been participating in the last however number of camps or the Copa America roster, whatever it is. And I don't know if you want to put those guys out in the wilderness right away, right? I think you have the luxury of having a September camp and you have a couple games in October where you can kind of get a feel for them and who they are. And then if you want to move on after you've seen them in person and can get an idea if they fit, there are a lot of things you're looking at. And then you have October as well. But I wouldn't put out people in the wilderness that have been a part of it for a while. I think you still want to make sure that there's a bridge there.
I wonder who Pochettino's goalkeeper coach will be. And then if I'm him, I just call in 5 keepers and just absolutely test them. Like,
why not?
It's like a trial. All right, guys, just pepper them and see who reacts the best. Who does the goalkeeper coach think who has the highest potential and who's the best at the moment, and just go from there.
We could say that for a lot of the positions on the field, the back line and goalkeeper. I mean, outside of Jedi Robinson, I think everything feels pretty wide open in the other one, especially with Des being hurt. All right, we are going to take our last break. Call it what you want. When we come back, we're going to talk about some transfer news and the Leagues Cup final. Columbus Crew doing the business once again. Do not go anywhere.
At CBS Sports Golazo Network, we're bringing you the game.
Madness of Messi arrives!
Breaking down the game.
This is unlike anything else in the world.
And changing the game.
Get it all for nil.
That means free.
Wow.
And all day long!
24/7.
Welcome back to Call What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies. And we're bringing the show home for you today. Shout out to Brian McBrizzle-McBride and Felipe Cardenas from The Athletic for joining us a little bit earlier, talking all Mauricio Pochettino news. Let's get into some transfer news, though, Chuck. And some of it is by not leaving it all, as Weston McKennie has signed an extension with Juve until the end of 2025 or 26, excuse me. And I thought he was gone. This is the second consecutive summer where the manager said that Weston McKennie's not in their plans, and somehow he's now back in the plans. But I don't even know what that means. I'm excited that he's got a home. He's willing to fight for it. I like that part of his mentality, that he backs himself and has that type of confidence in his ability. And when he's playing at that level, you can see how important that is when he's playing with confidence, and goes for any player, but Weston in particular. I guess the big question is, will he get enough minutes under Thiago Motta, who clearly likes to play a certain style, and it's definitely more possession based. Not to say that Weston can't play that, but I wonder if he fits into the plans in that particular way.
I just think he just shows a competitiveness, a resilience that has impressed a lot of these coaches who say, nah, we don't want you, because it's very easy to say, give up, or, all right, I'll go find someone else, or I'll go get a bigger contract. I'll play in Saudi Arabia, whatever, go to MLS. And he's willing to say, I'll compete every day. You can count me out and I'll still show up. And I think there's something about that American spirit, which, you talk to a lot of coaches in Europe. They always say, I love the Americans because of their work ethic, because they just, no matter what comes their way, they're willing to grind. And I think that's because we know going into Europe, we have a chip on our shoulder. We got to earn that respect. And that, that's something that you really got to like about Weston.
Okay. Now there's other Juve news with Timo Weah being hurt, and it looks like he won't be back until after the international break, which means he won't most likely be called in for the September window. Juve have signed Nico Gonzalez, the Argentinian, who's very good, who plays on the right side as well, and Porto's Francisco Conceição. So that just means more competition for Tim and for Weston.
That's what happens when you play at a club.
I get it. But I guess what makes me concerned is that Weah and Weston were already there previous to Thiago Motta. Okay. And I know we're going to get into Leagues Cup and Wilfred Nancy and Columbus Crew here in a second. I think there's some correlations in terms of team building, that you have an identity of how you want to play, and now you're going to find the players that you think fit that mold the best. Now, Weston and Tim were just handed. They were already there. And now Thiago Motta's like, I don't have time for Federico Chiesa. Like, he's out. And others. But Chiesa, for me, is like the biggest name. Like, Chiesa's a good player, and he's like, doesn't fit my style. He's out. And Weston was in that space there for a while. And maybe he does have to eat some crow, and Chiesa's going to come back into the fold if they can't move him. But he's not first choice. If you're going to go make these signings, you're going to play those guys. And they're going to get a chance in your system. And I guess that makes me worried for both Tim and Weston in terms of getting valuable minutes this particular season. What say you on this?
Yeah. Well, this is the problem, Jimmy. I don't know if it's necessarily a problem, but maybe this is one of the difficulties of playing at the biggest clubs in Europe. When you play for Milan, when you play for Chelsea, when you play for Juve, even when you're playing well, the club is going to bring in big players with big names and scoring records, a history of success, and that's the competition that you put yourself in. And for some, maybe that brings the most out of you. For some, you're always going to be seen as second, third choice, and when that player gets injured or suspended or he's not in good form, then you get the opportunity to play. But if you don't do well every single match, you're the first one subbed or the first one to come off the starting 11, and that's just the reality of things. So we can't sit here and feel bad if you're playing at Juventus and Weston McKennie not too long ago was playing alongside Cristiano Ronaldo, and all of a sudden they're bringing in some of these top players. Like for me, Nico Gonzalez was a star in Serie A, and so it only makes sense that he's going to be going to a club like Juventus. And I just hope that they continue to find minutes, because it's very easy when you're at a club like that and they're bringing in top talent that you find yourself as extra, and you're just training and not playing matches.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting situation there. I do value Thiago Motta a lot as a coach, and I think that Weah and Weston will improve in the terms of how he likes to set up his teams and how they like to play. So I've got no problem on that side of it. You just want them to obviously get as many valuable and meaningful minutes as possible so they can play in high-pressure situations that are above and beyond just training at a high level. All right, let's talk about Tanner Tessmann. You brought him up a little bit earlier. It looked like he is nearing a deal to leave Venezia, where it seems like he's on the outs. That relationship is unmendable. I don't even know if that's a word.
Broken down.
Broken down. And now he is going to be heading to Lyon in Liga in France. There are 4 Americans right now in France with Flo Balogun, Emmanuel Sabi, Caleb Wiley, and Mark McKenzie. And now Tanner Tessmann could be the 5th one. Do you like this move? Lyon's a big club. And
Lyon's a massive club.
They've lost their first 2 games of the season, 3-0 to Rennes, and then they lost at home to Monaco 2-0. And so, but this is a big club. And in some ways I kind of like from Tanner Tessmann's perspective, not as a Lyon fan, which I'm not, but you'd be kind of pissed if you lost your first 2 games of the season, that Tessmann could come in and be like, hey, we could use this guy. He could maybe help us right away. So it's better to go to a team, I guess, that's struggling than a team that already knows what they're all about and are having a ton of success. Harder to break in there.
Yeah, I mean, well, Lyon is super strong. Great supporters, great club, great stadium, fantastic history. And I remember playing in France. There was only 2. It was just me and Bocanegra. We were the only 2 Americans there. So it's great to see 4, potentially 4 in Liga. Lyon, they have some top players. They're great at developing talent. They have a fantastic academy as well. So I think this would be a fantastic move for Tanner Tessmann. And then it's just on him. And I always go back to this question, Jimmy. You get a Pochettino to say, yes, I want to come to the U.S. and coach for the U.S. men's national team and be the manager. So now, is it solely on the players if they don't get the results? Because obviously he's a brilliant manager. Or do you still place, would we still be placing the blame on Pochettino if come, Gold Cup, things aren't going according to plan? Where is that balance of how much is on the players now versus how much is on the coach to get the most out of the group? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, no, it's a delicate balance. I think that's based on what we've seen and the track record that's already been put in place for this group of players and what they've achieved, right? I still think we are desperate for a signature win for this particular group. And I don't know if we're going to get too many opportunities to take on big nations leading into the 2026 World Cup, which I think is a big fear no matter who is coaching us. But I believe we're going to see some elements of what Pochettino does well in terms of how we are organized defensively, and then how we're trying to attack. What kind of identity can we establish that will probably look a lot different than what we were doing under Greg? And that then it's like, can he, once he's established that, looked at our player pool and decided these are the players that are going to help me achieve the success that we're looking for and to help us make a deep run? It's hard to say. It's going to be a little bit of both, I guess, is the quickest way to answer that. Because we have a nice track record of what these players have done at the international level and how they're performing for their clubs, we'll be able to tell, I feel like, very quickly whether it's due to players not performing well, or if it's due to a coach and his staff not being able to get the most out of this particular group. In some ways, Chuck, and I wonder about this too, are we going to find that Pochettino is just going to be frustrated with what he has at his disposal? And is that going to demonstrate that maybe we're not as talented as we thought or we hope that we are? And that might be it's going to be hard for me to accept, because I think these players are uber talented. But does that turn into something actually meaningful outside of, getting the wins against Mexico, though valuable to us, of course, as they're our big rivals. We still are kind of clamoring. Yeah, time's going to tell. Yeah, there's all these cliches we can use. But it is an interesting question, because, yes, some of the responsibility, if we don't perform well, of course it's going to fall on the coaching staff. They didn't maximize the potential of this group. But the other side of it is, maybe the potential of this group isn't as high as we think it is, or that we want it to be.
I can't believe Ivis said stop dancing. You're dancing on this topic.
Yeah, and it's great. Listen, I got a whole bunch of moves right here. I was freestyling right there. Break dancing. I was like that Australian woman breakdancing right there.
I can't believe. Oh, Ray Gun. I'm gonna call you. Oh, there you go, Jimmy Ray Gun Conrad.
I'll take it. I'll take the dance. I don't think it's hard. We're still in speculation mode, but I think there's a responsibility on both. Listen, it's a podcast. We can go long on any of our answers that we want, Chuck. All right, let's talk about Leagues Cup, because the Columbus Crew won yet another trophy and demonstrated for me that they should go down as one of the best MLS teams of all time. And they're not even done yet. So I wonder how much more they're going to accomplish.
All time, you're willing to throw that out there, of all time already.
Okay, maybe. Well,
my God.
Okay, maybe that was too big of a jump.
Wow. Wildly disrespectful. For you've seen some of the greatest teams. You're automatically going to crown them that?
I said maybe one of the best. Yeah, but
even in the discussion.
Yeah, I put him in the discussion.
Wow.
Yeah, I would. Because I think this is just the beginning of something, as long as Wilfred Nancy stays in place as coach, that is sustainable. And
I can't believe you're saying that.
I can't. Okay, well, I want you to go up against, like, if we look at Toronto FC,
that DC United team, the Chicago Fire team.
Listen, both of those teams were very good.
Oh,
don't get me wrong.
Goodness,
they would be good games. Like, if you put the current Crew team against that DC United team in when MLS was starting, they won a whole bunch of MLS Cups. Now, I will say, in fairness to them, every one of the starters for that DC United team played for their national team. And we can't say that now about current MLS teams.
No, but, and I'd say even that LA Galaxy team with Robbie.
Yeah, that team was good. I trained with that team. They were good.
Come on, what are we talking about?
I know, but listen. I've got a tweet here from Matthew Doyle, who says between the 2023 playoffs, the 2024 CONCACAF Champions Cup, and Leagues Cup, the Crew have gone 12-2-4 with a +16 goal differential. And along the way, they've beaten Tigres and Monterrey. They beat last year's Shield winners Cincinnati and this year's leaders Miami. And they beat LAFC in 2 finals. So
I'm sorry, but if Leagues Cup is any evidence, then you can't. I don't want to hear anything about Mexican teams now. You're talking about Leagues Cup teams are just like, we're over it. They don't care.
If Leagues Cup happened in Mexico, do you think? I just think things would be a little bit different.
We're talking about Leagues Cup, though. I don't want to hear Mexican teams were not. They shipped it in. They mailed it in. They wanted to go home.
Okay,
Leagues
okay.
Cup, there wasn't a single Mexican team in the semifinals. You're going to tell me they were taking it serious when they clean house every year in CONCACAF Champions Cup? Come on now.
Okay. So let's talk about year 2 of the Leagues Cup. Do you think this competition is a success or a failure?
I'm not willing to say it's a failure yet, but I can tell you one thing. It did not command anywhere near the attention it got last year. And of course, Messi made his introduction in last year's version of the League Cup, the inaugural Leagues Cup. This year, I think the interest was pretty low, if I'm going to be honest. And the Mexican teams, obviously, they didn't really show up either. So you put in that, and Mexican teams not really doing well, and putting in like a performance that would lead you to believe that they were taking it serious and that they wanted to win it like they do the CONCACAF Champions Cup, then I think the writing's on the wall there. So I think it would benefit the MLS teams if they played in Mexico in terms of playing in more difficult environments and being uncomfortable and the altitude and chasing the game. It would be more beneficial. Would they make more money? Probably not. But ultimately, what are you trying to do? Is this a competition for money, or is this a competition to grow the league and have better players and be more respected? And I think if you go out and play Leagues Cup and all the games are in Mexico and you have the same type of performances you did in this Leagues Cup, where it's all MS teams in the semifinals, that will speak volumes of the growth of this league. That will show the quality in this league after beating the Mexican teams in Mexico. And then there's no more excuses. And so, the Mexican teams wanted to go home. They were traveling. They're away from the family. No, actually, we beat you in altitude with all your fans in the heat, and it didn't matter. Then I'd say, hey, job well done. But you could tell this Leagues Cup lost a lot of steam.
Yeah, there are some positives to take away from this that I want to get into that are almost unemotional, just more on paper. And it still feels like it's a real estate grab. Like, we're just going to create more content. This is a competition so that we can sell more to Apple TV, and they're going to have more to show that's a little bit different. And what I do like about it in theory is that we finally have a competition that we're trying to add more value to, of course, where we pit MLS clubs against Mexican clubs. Like, there's a natural rivalry there. Let's get into it. There's some natural animosity. How do we tap into that? And then along the way, make a lot of money. And so, but to your point, it feels like it's more about the money first and player development second. Because if it was player development or not just player development, but helping your teams get better as well and be in tougher environments and get out of their comfort zone, going down to Mexico is an easy fix here. Logistically, I don't know what that looks like logistically, but
I can tell you from the player's perspective, most of the players I've talked to in Major League Soccer, they could care less about Leagues Cup, but the money's good. There's good bonuses. So that's why there's an incentive to play, because you're making much more money in Leagues Cup than you do in your everyday bonus in MLS play. So that's I guess the initiative is like, okay, if we can play and make a long stretch, we're going to make a good chunk of change. But at the end of the day,
for me, the negatives still outweigh it, right? So the Leagues Cup is trying to squeeze out the Open Cup. We've talked about it before. The Open Cup for me is historic and meaningful and has been around forever. And we need to honor that history. And that should be getting all the love and money and adoration, in my humble opinion. And so there's that. And then it's so early on that there's no history to it, right? It just feels like another manufactured competition to manufacture rivalry. And I get that you have to start somewhere. You have to put something in place to make it happen. And again, in theory, I love figuring out a way to play meaningful games against our rival Liga MX in real competition. So I like that in theory. I just wish it wouldn't try to replace the Open Cup. Another thing, though, that a positive ripple effect of this, Chuck, of the Leagues Cup, is that for the teams that get knocked out early, I do think it allows teams to reset and kind of almost like German
Revolution.
But the Revolution is a good example, right? They needed that break. They needed take a breather and get reset, and Caleb Porter can
get everyone healthy.
Get everybody healthy, and then they go and first game back and they smack Montreal away from home 5-0. I mean, that's a good example of that. But so it's getting healthy, I think, is really important. But it reminds me of the Bundesliga in Germany, where they're doing it for weather reasons, but they stop down for 5-6 weeks. they can get healthy again, they can get reset, and then they can kind of take a deep breath before they start their stretch run. And I don't know if that was an intended effect by MLS, but I kind of like that the teams that get knocked out early have some time to figure some things out. And I actually think that makes the second half of MLS a lot more intriguing because people can really go full gas as opposed to when we were playing, Chuck, where you're just barely trying to survive and not get like you're like on 70% by the end of an MLS season. And you're like limping into the playoffs and you're like, well, I hope we're the best team over 3 weeks so we could be champion. And even though that might still exist at the end of this, at least the guys from the majority of the teams that didn't have a deep run in Leagues Cup seem to be a little bit more fit. I think the play and the quality of play is a little bit higher, but that's my thoughts on that. Any last final thoughts of the show and of Leagues Cup, Chuck?
I would say congratulations to the Columbus Crew. Their fan base looked incredible, and they wanted to win, right? It mattered to them. Another trophy. Wilfried Nancy again showing, some tactical genius and getting his team to play the right way. It's fantastic how no matter what, they figure out a way to stay true to their principles and keep possession and get Diego Rossi and Cucho Hernandez involved in the movement to find space. Just I love that he's coaching up players who, ultimately maybe aren't at that level or proven to be at that level, but he's showing them how they can have consistency in his system. So kudos to Columbus Crew. And then for LAFC, Steve Cherundolo has to figure out a better way to keep possession, to keep the ball. Right now, it feels like they're very predictable in the way that they play. Still effective when you have a player like Denny Bouanga, but you got to have players who can control the tempo of the game and play to Giroud's feet. I mean, it felt like Giroud was on an island at times, and he'd keep the ball, and then he'd have no one to play the ball to. So they have a ways to go, but another final for Cherundolo and LAFC, and now hopefully they use this as motivation and a way to work better so that they're better suited to try and to win MLS Cup.
Yeah, two teams we could see once again in a final for MLS Cup, as you mentioned, high quality on both sides. But a shout out to the Crew, the hardest working team in America, for winning yet another trophy in the short time that Wilfried Nancy has been in charge. That guy is really something special as a manager. I'm very curious to see where he goes at some point. Sorry, Crew fans, after he leaves Columbus onto something next. All right, that's it. We're calling it a show. I do want to give a shout out to Ted Lasso. Apparently season 4 could be in the works.
Can we get on there? Like, call it what you want. Have our own special segment talking about Ted Lasso. Let's go.
You know what? I know some people now, so let me
I
let me
know
drop
you know
a note.
some people.
We'll have to figure that out. But thank you for listening and watching to Call It What You Want. As always, we appreciate your support. And we
the
look forward
comments
to
have been
an emergency
phenomenal.
podcast. Yeah, the comments always popping off, and the fact that you didn't get Chuck triggered too much or to 100. We got to work on that, chat, because you were close, but you didn't get there.
There were some people that were really close. I'm not gonna lie.
They were close. They were close. Well, guess what? We're gonna have another show very, very soon. Hopefully, an emergency podcast when U.S. Soccer announces Mauricio Pochettino. So be on the lookout for that. And again, thank you for the support. We'll see you soon. Later.
Appreciate you guys.
Later. Wow.